started, I just want to ask for a show of hands. How many of you have, well, Megan actually asked several of you, you guys gave a couple examples of negotiation. But if you really think about it, you negotiate something every single day of your life. One of the things that you negotiate is if you have a significant other, sometimes you negotiate what restaurant you want to eat that night. So if you really think about it, you are negotiating every day. Just that there's quite a bit more detail to negotiating a contract in the venue sense. So I'm going to start off here. Okay, so I want to start off here with 3 different types of venue relationships. And just make sure that you're on page number 5 to fill in some of those blanks. But the first one is a rental, which is clear cut. And actually, Cody will be going into a little bit more depth in these types of these 3 different types of contracts. However, the second one is the promoter, and this is when the venue actually becomes the promoter. Okay, so they buy the show, they buy the event, and by doing that, they take all the risk. The third type is what we call a co-promotion contract, and this is when the expenses, the liability, the risk is split between the promoter and the venue. Now, you might think, which one is the more important of the 3? And actually, it just really depends on your venue. So when we think of Springfield, for example, a lot of the venues here are going to be more rental contracts. Okay, so to begin, is there really a reason to negotiate? And the answer to that is no. Okay, and the reason for that is because you might already have a relationship with that promoter or that booking agent. So you really have a rapport with that person already, and you know that person. So it makes the process just a little bit easier. Just keep in mind that you require the cooperation of others. If you do, you are negotiating. And you want to make sure that you're very specific on what you want to negotiate. And really the key idea here is you want to make sure that you're creating value for both sides. Okay, so we're going to talk about 2 different, well, first of all, let me ask you guys, how many of you have either had a personal selling class or a business communication class? Okay, so quite a few of you. So this might be a little bit of a refresher for some of you, but we're going to talk about the face-to-face relationship that you have with somebody versus the over the phone. Now, there are going to be times where you're going to possibly negotiate a contract where you actually haven't physically met that person. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a handshake. The handshake really gives that first impression. Okay, so what would you say would be a really good handshake? Just what are 1 or 2 words that really make you think of a good handshake?
Eye
Okay.
contact.
What's that?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Good. Okay, and there's a lot of really good key points in your workbook there when we're talking about handshake. And I want to start off by doing a little exercise. So you'll notice that each of you have a number in front of you. And what you want to do is you want to get with a partner that has the opposite number than you. So just make sure you guys team up. Somebody has 1 and the other person has 2. So Alex, you might want to work with Mike behind you. And what you can do here is you can do number 2. And you 2 pull it together. Okay. Before I get started, I want to talk about 3 different handshakes that you don't want to do. So, Alex, do you mind if I touch your hand? Okay, so when I'm approaching Alex, one of the things that you want to make sure you do is you both kind of come in together, firm, look them in the eye. Hi, Alex, I'm Desiree. Nice to meet you. And then you release your hand. Okay? Now, one of the things that some people might not be able to control, or before you actually approach that person, is just wipe your hand off. Have you ever actually shook somebody's hand and it's sweaty? Okay, that's not a really good feeling. Okay, there's also what we call the princess handshake. Okay, and then another one is the controller. Okay, And the other one is what we call the bone crusher. I'm sure this, a lot of the times, usually this is a dominant thing for a man to do, but the crushing of the hand, I won't crush your hand on this. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is flip over your card, but do not show the other person your card. And just, take a couple minutes if you guys could actually shake once, do the handshake that's on the card, and each other guess which handshake you just did.
I'll do the first one, right?
Control.
Yes.
Okay, and then here's one.
Crusher! Bone crusher. Okay, and then let's see. Here you go.
Princess. Yeah, it's really awkward.
I know.
All right. Did they sync up?
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Yeah,
It was
this is
regular,
regular.
right? Right. All right. I think we hit them all.
Yeah.
You have another one on there?
I've got the controller.
Show me your controller.
It's kind of controller, bone crusher, and like the.
Exactly.
All right,
That's
pretty
good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much for participating in that short little exercise. It's okay, and especially for some of you younger venue managers, it's okay to make physical contact with the person that you're negotiating. Sometimes I think we lose sight of that because of technology. So just always remember and think about the way you're approaching somebody with a handshake, because it can leave a lasting impression. Okay, a couple other things that are up here on the slide. Again, having that face-to-face conversation. It's just being aware. And what I mean by that is being aware of your hand gestures, your facial expressions. If you have to, maybe practice in the mirror. I know that sounds really strange, but sometimes we can, like my husband always tells me that when I get angry, my eyebrows lift up. So, show interest and enthusiasm in what you're doing and what you're negotiating, and also stay positive. And one of the things that's actually not listed there in your workbook, but one of the most important things, is make sure you're listening. Okay, just really make sure you're listening to what the other person is trying to get across. Okay, so the next type of interaction is phone interaction. And you might be surprised that it says smile up here, but a smile actually does come through the phone. So make sure you're smiling. And one of the it's not listed on here as well, but just really remember, especially when you're on a cell phone, to be aware of your environment. So if you're not really quite ready to take that phone call and you know that you're going to be talking some negotiation strategy, make sure that you're in a quiet office and that you have no interruptions. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. Don't slouch in your chair. Sit up straight when you're speaking on the phone. And have a paper and pen ready to take notes. Have you guys ever been on a customer phone call, or you're calling like maybe the phone company or something, and they ask you to repeat the information to you, or your bank, or whatever you're trying to get across, or they don't tell the next person, like if you have to be transferred from phone call to phone call, or from person to person. So really be taking down notes and show that you're ready to speak to them. And then also speak clearly. Okay, so the next thing in the relationship, and actually Matt will go into a little bit more detail on this with his win-win strategy, but are you prepared? Do you have an agenda? Do you have the information either written down or typed up and ready to go before you go into that meeting? And going back to the phone real quick, one of the things that I wanted to mention is